Destination is called the Sanatana sky. Yesterday we were talking about, once the living entity purifies his heart, and he will be able to reach the ultimate destination, which is beyond this material world. The destination is called Sanatana sky, the eternal spiritual sky. In this material world, we find that everything is temporary. It comes into being, stays for some time, produces some byproducts, dwindles, and then vanishes. That is the law of the material world. Whether we use as an example this body or a piece of fruit or anything. But beyond this temporary world, there is another world of which we have information. This world consists of another nature, which is a Sanatana, eternal. Jiva is also described as Sanatana, eternal. And the Lord is also described as Sanatana in the 11th chapter. We have an intimate relationship with the Lord, and because we are all qualitatively one, the Sanatana Dharma, the sky, the Sanatana Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Sanatana living entities, the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to revive our Sanatana occupation, our Sanatana Dharma, which is eternal occupation of the living entity. We are temporarily engaged in different activities, but all of these activities can be purified when we give up all these temporary activities and take up the activities which are prescribed by the Supreme Lord. That is called our pure life. So here, in this paragraph, it is explained that what is a pure life means. Getting out of the clutches of the Maya, material, bodily concept of life is actually pure life. And here it is mentioned about a different Sanatana, eternities. Spiritual sky is Sanatana, and Supreme Lord is Sanatana, and living entity is also Sanatana. Sanatana means eternal. And a being eternal, the occupation of the living entity is called Sanatana Dharma. Dharma means occupation. The Sanatana Dharma means eternal occupation of living entity. People often talk in the material world that, hey, Sanatana Dharma, but without understanding the meaning of Sanatana Dharma, people try to use this word. Sanatana Dharma means eternal occupation of living entity. And what is that eternal occupation of living entity? Jivera Swarupe, Krishna. To be the servant of Krishna is the eternal occupation of the living entity. In the material world, we are engaged in different activities, but all of them are temporary in nature. But when these activities are purified and give up these material activities and engage ourselves, or as prescribed by the Krishna consciousness movement, as dictated by Krishna himself, if you translate our material activities into spiritual by engaging all these activities for the satisfaction of Krishna, then they all become purified. And if you lead a life according to the principles given by the Krishna, that life becomes a pure life. So it's up to us whether we wanted to live a pure life, impure life. But one who wants to live their life purely, that means they have to adhere to the principles given by the Krishna. So the Supreme Lord and his transcendental abode are both Sanatana, as are the living entities. And the combined association of Supreme Lord and the living entities in the Sanatana abode is the perfection of human life. So important. Perfection of human life is not to achieve something in this material world. Use this material world or the material body to achieve our ultimate goal. We, being a living entity, were eternal. Sanatana means eternity. Our constitutional position, Sanatana Dharma, eternal duty is to serve Krishna. When you are engaged in such activities, all kinds of difficulties will come over. All kinds of difficulties will overcome. Supreme Lord Krishna and his transcendental abode, both of them are Sanatana, eternal. So the living entities are also eternal. Supreme Lord, living entities, and Supreme Lord's abode, Sanatana. Achieving that abode of Supreme Lord is a perfection of human life. Lord is very kind to all living entities because all the living entities are his own children. Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita, the Sarva Yonishu Shukaunteya. Aham Bija Pradapita. I am the father of all living entities. Of course, there are all types of living entities according to their various karmas. But here, the Lord claims that he is the father of all of them. Therefore, the Lord descends to the reclaim all of these fallen conditioned souls to call them back to the Sanatana, eternal sky, so that the Sanatana living entities may regain their eternal Sanatana positions in eternal association with the Lord. The Lord comes himself in different incarnations, or he sends his confidential servants as sons or his associates or acharyas to reclaim the conditions. Therefore, Sanatana Dharma does not refer to any sectarian process of religion. It is the eternal function of the eternal living entities in relationship with the eternal Supreme Lord. Sanatana Dharma refers, as stated previously, to the eternal occupation of the living entity. Ramanujacharya explained the word Sanatana as that which has neither beginning nor end. So when you speak of Sanatana Dharma, you must take it for granted on the authority of Sri Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. This is the meaning of Sanatana. As Ramanujacharya explains, Sanatana means eternal. Eternal means there is no beginning and no end. This is what Sanatana Dharma means. The occupation of living entity which doesn't has a beginning and end. That means eternal occupation of living entity is Sanatana Dharma. But often in the material world, the people refer Sanatana Dharma to point out a particular religion and etc. But that doesn't mean Sanatana Dharma means it represents any religion or sectarian components. So the English word religion is a little different from Sanatana Dharma. Religion conveys the idea of faith. It's very important that we need to understand. Religion means faith. And faith may change. That means religion may change. You see that. Hindu becomes Christian, Christian becomes Muslim, Muslim becomes Hindu. And all these combinations exist in this material. One may have the faith in particular process and he may change his faith and adopt another. But Sanatana Dharma refers to the activity which cannot be changed. Most important aspect. Sanatana Dharma is not a religion. Religion can be changed. Hindu can become a Muslim, Muslim can become a Hindu. Christian can become a Hindu, Hindu can become a Christian, so on and so forth. But Sanatana Dharma is a eternal activity of living entity. Sanatana, eternal activity that doesn't change. That's why here it's mentioned Sanatana Dharma refers to that activity which cannot be changed. For instance, Srila Prabhupada gives very nice examples to understand this. Liquidity cannot be taken away from the water, nor can heat be taken away from fire. Right? If there is a fire, there is nothing called cold fire. Fire means hot, right? Water means liquid. Similarly, eternal function of the eternal living entity cannot be taken away from the living entity. Sanatana Dharma is eternally integral with the living entity. So when there is a living entity has inherent component, eternal Dharma, that is Sanatana Dharma, which is to be servant of Supreme Lord Krishna. So when you speak of Sanatana Dharma, therefore we must take it for granted on the authority of Sri Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. Ramanujacharya explains what is the meaning of Sanatana Dharma, which doesn't have the beginning and end. That which has neither end nor beginning must not be sectarian, for it cannot be limited by any boundaries. Yet those belonging to some sectarian faith will wrongly consider that Sanatana Dharma is also sectarian. But if you go deeply into the matter and consider it in the light of the modern science, it is possible for us to see that Sanatana Dharma is the business of all people of the world, all living entities of the universe. Non-Sanatana religious faith may have some beginning in the annals of the human history, but there is no beginning of the history of Sanatana Dharma because it remains eternally with the living entities. Insofar as the living entities are concerned, the authoritative Shastras state that the living entity has neither birth nor death. In the Gita, it is stated that the living entity is never born and he never dies. He is eternal and indestructible, and he continues to live after the destruction of this temporary material body. In difference to the concept of Sanatana Dharma, we must try to understand the concept of religion from the Sanskrit root meaning of the word. Dharma refers to that which is constantly existing in a particular object. We conclude that there is a heat and light along with the fire. Without heat and light, there is no meaning to the word fire. Similarly, we must discover the essential part of the living being, that part which is constant companion. That constant companion is eternal quality, and that eternal quality is eternal relation. Is it clear? That means, if dharma means any particular thing or a person that stays with them without that particular quality, existence of that particular person or a thing has no meaning. For instance, fire has to have a heat and light. If there is no heat and light, we don't call it as a fire. Fire doesn't have any meaning if it doesn't have the heat and light. Water means liquid. If there is no liquidity, we don't call it as a water. So this is inherent quality of this particular thing. Similarly, the living entity has inherent quality which cannot be separated. And that quality continue to exist with the living entity eternally. It will not leave it. That eternal quality of the living entity is called dharma. That is called eternal dharma, eternal relation of living entity. When Sanatana Goswami asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the swarupa of every living being, the Lord replied that swarupa or constitutional position of the living being is the rendering of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now the question arises, what is the inherent quality of the living entity? This question is asked by Sanatana Goswami to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu nicely replied. Swarupa, that means constitutional position of living entities to serve Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. If we analyze the statement of Lord Chaitanya, we can easily see that every living being is constantly engaged in rendering service to another living being. It means the service component of living entity is eternal. It cannot be separated from the living entity. We can see that as Lord Chaitanya says, if you see any living entity is constantly engaged in rendering service to some thing, either his own senses or other living beings or something. Living being serves other living beings in two capacities. By doing so, the living entity enjoys life. The lower animals serve human beings as servants serve their master. A serves B master, B serves C master, and C serves D master, and so on. Under these circumstances, we can see that one friend serves another friend. The mother serves the son. The wife serves the husband. Husband serves the wife, and so on. If you go on searching in this spirit, it will be seen that there is no exception in the society of living beings to the activity of service. The politician presents his manifesto for the public to convince them of his capacity of service. The voters therefore give the politician their valuable votes, thinking that he will render valuable service to society. The shopkeepers serve the customers, and the artisan serves the capitalist. The capitalist serves the family, and the family serves the state in the terms of the eternal capacity of the eternal living being. In this way, we can see that no living beings exempt from rendering service to other living beings. And therefore, we can safely conclude that service is a constant companion of the living being. And that the rendering of service, the eternal religion of the all living beings. This is what is, how we establish the fact presented by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We see that within our purview, all living entities are rendering service. A family man serves his family. Husband serves wife, wife serves husband, mother serves children. If you see that, politician serves his subjects, the people. If you notice that everybody is serving somebody, everybody is engaged in some service. By this, you can easily conclude that inherent component of all living entities to do service. Yet man professes to belong to a particular type of faith with reference to particular time and circumstances, and thus claims to be a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect. Such designations are non-Sanatana Dharma. Very important. Please note this point. The people in general, nowadays we see that, profess to be belonging to a particular type of faith with reference to particular time and circumstances, and those claim Hindu, Muslim, and Christian, and so on. We'll see now also the people claim, I am Hindu, I am Sanatana Dharma. No, but Sanatana Dharma doesn't have any religion. Religion means faith. Sanatana Dharma means inherent quality of living entity. So here it is mentioning the designations of Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, and etc. are non-Sanatana Dharma. If you are claiming yourself a Hindu, then you are not a Sanatana Dharmi. Sanatana Dharma means Dharma that is associated with the spirit soul. When you claim yourself as a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian, there is no difference. Just because you are claiming as a Hindu, then you are a Sanatani. No. If you are looking from the perspective of the definition of Sanatana Dharma, everybody is a Sanatani. All living entities are Sanatani. But if you are looking for the perspective of a faith, then you doesn't belong to Sanatana Dharma. If you call yourself a Hindu, then you cannot be a Sanatana Dharmi. That is what is the statement here. Such designations are non-Sanatana Dharma. Very important. When you say Sanatana Dharma means it's associated with the eternal occupation of the living entity. Because this Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, all these things are faith. Religion is nothing but a faith. And anybody can change their faith at any time. Even in India, across the majority of the countries where there is a democracy specifically, we'll see that the people have a right to choose their religion. See, Hindu can become a Muslim, or Muslim can become a Hindu, or Christian can become a Hindu, or Hindu can become a Christian, and so on and so forth. We are seeing that. Because this religion is a faith that can be changed. But Dharma cannot be changed. That is the difference between a Dharma and religion. Religion, people can change according to their will, place, circumstances, and so on and so forth. But Dharma is an inherent quality of the living entity that cannot be changed. And that inherent quality is a service. It doesn't matter your faith is a Hindu, your faith is a Christian, your faith is a Muslim. This is a very important point.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, you told note this point.
Yeah.
What that point, Prabhuji?
So that is whether you are a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, all these are faith. These are religions. Religion means faith. And these designations are non-Sanatana Dharma. This is to be noted. When you say you are Hindu, you are not a Sanatana Dharma, but you are a non-Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma doesn't have any kind of designations, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hindu means a designation. I am man, I am woman. I am Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. All these are designations. And this can be changed, especially when you're talking about a religion. Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. It's a faith, right? That can be changed.
Yes, Prabhuji.
But Sanatana Dharma is an inherent component of the thing or a person that cannot be changed. Dharma cannot be changed.
Yes, Prabhuji.
That point need to be noted. Sanatani means not Hindu. Sanatani means living entity associated with the Supreme Lord. If somebody claiming I'm a Hindu, I'm Sanatani, he's talking nonsense. He doesn't understand what is Sanatana Dharma means, and he doesn't understand what religion means. That means he's completely in ignorance. So it's a very important point. So here, further reading, it says a Hindu may change his faith to become a Muslim, and a Muslim may change his faith to become Hindu, or Christian may change his faith to, and so on. But in all circumstances, the change of religious faith does not affect the eternal occupation of rendering service to others. Whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian, everybody is doing this service, right? If a Muslim wife and husband, are they not serving each other? Are Muslim mother not serving her children? Are Hindu mother not serving her children? Or Christian mother not serving her children? The service is inherent. That doesn't change. Hindu, Muslim, or Christian in all circumstances is servant of someone. Thus, to profess a particular type of sect is not to profess one Sanatana Dharma. The rendering of service is Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma is rendering of service. This particular property, particular component of rendering service exists in all occupations. Whether you identify yourself as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, women, men, whatever you call yourself. But inherently, the quality of serving exists in you. So that is called Dharma. Dharma means a quality that cannot be changed, but it continues to exist with you eternally. Factually, we are related to the Supreme Lord in service. The Supreme Lord is a supreme enjoyer, and we, the living entities, are his servitors. We are created for his enjoyment, and if we participate in that eternal enjoyment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we become happy. We cannot become happy otherwise. It is not possible to be happy independently, just as no one part of the body can be happy without cooperating with the stomach. It is not possible for the living entity to be happy without rendering transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Lord. In this paragraph, actually, the definition of happiness, how one can be happy eternally, is given. The secret of happiness, how to attain happiness, is given here. We, the living entities, belongs to Supreme Personality of Godhead, part and parcel of Krishna. The only way to be happy for us is to rendering service to Krishna. Supreme Lord Krishna is supreme enjoyer. Bhoktaram ekatapsa sarvaloka maheshwaram. We, the living entities, are his servitors. Jivera Sarupe Nitya Krishna Das. We are actually created for his enjoyment. And we take up that process, whatever we meant for. If we engage in that activity, we automatically derive the pleasure and happiness. If we don't do that, we never be happy. Like a fish out of the water. Natural position of the fish is to be in the water. If it is taken off the water, and you give a very nice palatial building and say that, hey, I have built a nice room for you, a nice chair for you. You just, come and sit here. No, it will not be able to enjoy it because its natural position is to be in the water. Similarly, we, the living entities, our natural position is to be in the service of Supreme Lord. If you wanted to be happy, we need to engage in the transcendental loving service of Krishna. That is a principle to be happy. That's a process to be happy. If you don't do that, you will never be happy. Wherever you go and whatever you search for happiness, wherever you search for happiness, you will not get it. The Bhagavad Gita, worship of different demigods, are rendering service to them is not approved. This is another important point. Bhagavad Gita doesn't approve rendering service to different demigods. Demigods means various devatas. It is specifically mentioned in the 7th chapter, 20th verse. Kamastair kritajnana prapadyante anya devata tam niyam astaya prakritya niyata swaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own nature. Here it is plainly said that those who are directed by the lust worship the demigods and not the Supreme Lord Krishna. When we mention the name Krishna, we do not refer to any sectarian name. Krishna means the highest pleasure, and it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is the reservoir or storehouse of all pleasure. We are all hankering after the pleasure. Anandamayobhyasyat. Vedanta Sutra 1.1.12. The living entities, like the Lord, are full of consciousness and they are after happiness. The Lord is perpetually happy, and if the living entities associate with the Lord, cooperate with Him, and take part in His association, then they also become happy. This is a simple formula to be happy. If you are looking for happiness, the way to get the happiness is to engage ourselves in the service of the Lord. Very simple. The Lord descends to this mortal world to show His pastimes in the Vrindavana, which are all full of happiness. When Lord Sri Krishna was in the Vrindavana, his activities with his cowboys, boyfriends, with his damsel friends, with the inhabitants of Vrindavana and with the cows were all full of happiness. The total population of Vrindavana knew nothing but Krishna. But Lord Krishna even discouraged his father Nanda Maharaja from worshipping the demigod Indra because he wanted to establish the fact that the people need not worship any demigod. They need only worship the Supreme Lord because their ultimate goal is to return to his abode. This is the nature of living entities, constitutional position of living entities to be in association of Krishna. That is why we should not worship any demigods. If you worship other demigods, what happens? We'll go to the demigod's place. And those demigods' places are also temporary in nature, material. Our constitutional position is to render service to Krishna, not to others. To reach to the abode of Krishna, one need to worship Krishna only. Krishna is not a name of a particular sectarian or religious name. Krishna means all attractive, full of pleasure, reservoir of pleasure. That's the meaning of Krishna. And Supreme Lord Krishna is reservoir of pleasure. And that pleasure is available for all living entities. Not just human beings, but all living entities. So the sectarian thing which you incorporate in the material way, creating by ourselves, has no meaning in eternity. So it's a very fact, right? When you read Bhagavad Gita, we understand. We may be Hindu, so-called Hindu faith. Next, we may be not even a next life. You can, become a Muslim very next week. And a Muslim may become a Christian, a Christian may become a Hindu, or Muslim may become a Hindu. This external religion is just a faith, way of life, erupted in the society. But your dharma, inherent quality, is to render service. Whatever faith you are taking it up, your inherent quality of rendering service is not vanished. So the abode of Lord Krishna is described in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, 6th verse. Natad bhashyate suryo, na shashanko na pavaka, yadgatvana nivardante, taddama paramam mama. The abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. And anyone who reaches it never comes back to this material world. This is what Krishna is communicating, that where he is, how his abode is not illuminated by external illuminating source, not by sun, not by moon. It's self-illuminated. This verse gives the description of the eternal sky. Of course, we have a material conception of the sky, and we think of it in relationship to the sun, moon, stars, and so on. But in this verse, the Lord states that the eternal sky, there is no need for the sun or the moon or fire or any kind of, because spiritual sky is already illuminated by the Brahma Jyoti, the rays emanating from the Supreme Lord. We are trying with the difficulty to reach other planets, but it is not difficult to understand the abode of Supreme Lord. This abode is referred to as Goloka. In the Brahma Samhita, it is beautifully described. Goloka eva nivasatva kilatma bhuta. The Lord resides eternally in his abode, Goloka. Yet, he can be approached from this world. And to this end, the Lord comes to manifest his real form, Sachidananda Vigraha. When he manifests in this form, there is no need for our imagining what he looks like. Discourages such imaginative speculation, he descends and exhibits himself as he is, as Shamasundara. Unfortunately, the less intelligent deride him because he comes as one of us and plays with us as human being. But because of this, we should not consider that the Lord is one of us. It is by his potency that he presents himself in his real form before us and displays his pastimes, which are prototypes of those pastimes found in his abode. It's very important. Krishna, when he appears in this material world, he looks like us, like a human being. But his appearance in this material world is not on the same platform as we appearing in this material world. He appears in the material world to exhibit his pastime so that he can attract the conditioned souls who are suffering in this material world and who can attracted by the pastimes of Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. But some people think that Krishna, when he appeared on this material world, is a normal individual like us. And they consider another human being. This is called, further in a Shastras, you'll see that such people are actually called Pashandi. Avajanantima Muda Asuram Bhavamashrita. Those people who are less intelligent people, they do not understand it. But Supreme Lord, Krishna, when he appears on this material world, is not controlled by this material nature. He is not like one of us. He appears by his own will. Whereas we appear in this material world on the clutches of Maya and condition. We're conditioned by the material nature. We're controlled by the material nature. Whereas Krishna controls the material nature. He comes here as a supreme authority out of his own sweet will. Where Krishna lives, the abode of Krishna is called Goloka and is not illuminated by any external illuminating sources, but it is illuminated by the Brahmajyoti, which is an effulgence emanating from his body. That Brahmajyoti is actually everywhere. Wherever you see the light, actually, the source of that light is Brahmajyoti. When you see sun, the sun is actually a source of energy and the light for the entire of the material world. And the material world is illuminated by the sun. And the sun derives the light from Brahmajyoti. And Brahmajyoti is nothing but the effulgence emanating from Krishna. So we can understand wherever you see the light, actually that light is coming from the body of Krishna, Brahmajyoti. See, everything that we see in the material world is emanation from Krishna. Our body, which is made of 5 different material elements, is actually belongs to Krishna. Material energy is emanating from Krishna. It's one of the energies of Krishna. And spiritual beings who are the part and parcel of Krishna, the living entities, part and parcel of Krishna belongs to Krishna. And this material world belongs to Krishna, we belongs to Krishna, and spiritual sky belongs to Krishna. So everything belongs to Krishna. Understanding this fundamental point actually liberates the living entity from this material clutches. In order to understand the position of Krishna, Krishna mercifully descends on this material world and performs various pastimes, various activities, Leela, which are actually prototypes of what he do in his eternal abode, Goloka Vrindavan. So in this way, when you understand Krishna's position, it leads us to understand our own position and our relationship with Krishna. By understanding this, actually, we get liberated from this material concept of life. In the effulgent rays of spiritual sky, there are innumerably many planets floating. The Brahmajyoti emanates from the supreme abode, Krishna Loka, and the Anandamaya, Chinmaya planets, which are not material, float in those rays. The Lord says, Natat Bhashyate Suryo, Na Shashanko, Na Pavaka, Yadgatva Nanivardante Tadhama Paramam Mama. One who can approach that spiritual sky is not required to descend again this material sky. Material sky, even if you approach the highest planet Brahmaloka, what to speak of the moon, we will find the same conditions of life, namely birth, death, disease, and old age. No planet in the material universe is free from those four principles of material existence. Therefore, the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Abrahma bonar loke punaravartino Arjuna. The living entities are traveling from one planet to another, not by mechanical arrangement, but by spiritual process. This is also mentioned. Yanti deva vratan devan, pritunyante prituvrata. No mechanical arrangement is necessary if we want interplanetary travel. Gita instructs, Yanti deva vratan devan. The moon, the sun, the higher planets are called Swargaloka. There are three different statuses of planets, higher planet, higher, middle, and the lower planetary systems. The Earth belongs to the middle planetary system. Bhagavad Gita informs us how to travel to the higher planetary systems, Devaloka. It's a very simple formula. Yanti Deva Vratan Devan. One need only worship the particular demigod of particular planet, and in that way go to the moon, the sun, or any of the higher planetary systems. This is another important point. Materially, we are trying to go to the different planets which you see, moon, sun, and etc. Sun, of course, you cannot go because we burn into ashes even if you go closer. So we try to go to the moon planet. Though mechanical process, but here it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, we cannot reach to the different planetary systems by the mechanical means. But if you wanted to go to the different planetary systems, the process is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Yanti Deva Vratan Devan. If you wanted to go to the moon planet, the predominating deity moon, if you worship the moon, then Chandra, who is the predominating deity of the planet moon, if you worship him, then you can reach the Chandraloka. But the point here is, whichever planetary system you adopt to go to the highest planetary system within this Brahmanda, this planetary system is a Brahmaloka. Wherever you go, Brahma Bonar Loke Punaravartino Arjuna, the conditions of life is same. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, birth, death, old age, and disease does exist in all these planetary systems. Only planet where you can get out of this material cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease is when you reach Punaravartino Arjuna. Any material planet you go, you will have to reappear. But only planet you can escape from this is when you reach Goloka Vrindavan, the abode of Krishna. So really speaking, if you wanted to get out of the clutches of this cycle of birth and death, one has to go to the Krishna Loka, which is our eternal place of abode. So this is very important, and Bhagavad Gita explains, if anybody wants to go to the different planetary systems, how can reach that different planetary system. Yet, Bhagavad Gita does not advise us to go to any of these planets in this material world, because even if you go to the Brahmaloka, the highest planet, through some sort of mechanical contrivance by maybe traveling for 40,000 years, and who would live that long, we will still find the material inconveniences of birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who wants to approach the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, or any of the other planets within the spiritual sky, will not meet with these material inconveniences. Amongst all of the planets in the spiritual sky, there's a one supreme planet called Goloka Vrindavan, which is the original planet in the abode of the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All of this information is given in Bhagavad Gita, and we are given through its instruction, information, how to live the material world and begin a truly blissful life in the spiritual sky. In the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the real picture of the material world is given. So, Bhagavad Gita gives information to us, different planetary systems, how to reach the different planetary systems, and also explains us all these planetary systems up to the point of Brahmaloka, all of them is a material sky. That means we still have the similar life like your birth, death, old age, and disease. If you wanted to escape the cycle of birth and death and all kinds of inconveniences, then we need to get into the spiritual sky. Within the spiritual sky, there is a innumerable many planets, all are called the Vaikuntha Lokas. Among those Vaikuntha Lokas, the highest planet is Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna resides. All this information is given to us. In the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned how the material world is actually formulated, is explained in an elaborated manner. Urdhamulam adashakam ashwattam prahuravyayam chandam shiyascha pranani yashtam veda sabeda ved. Supreme Lord said, there is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches down, and the Vedic hymns are its leaves. One who knows this tree is the knower of Vedas. Here the material world is described as a tree whose roots are upward and the branches are below. We have experience of a tree whose roots are upward. If one stands on the bank of a river or any reservoir of water, he can see that the trees reflected in the water are upside down. The branches go downward and the roots upward. Similarly, this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. The material world is but a shadow of reality. In the shadow, there is no reality or substantiality. But from the shadow, we can understand that there is a substance and reality. In the desert, there is no water, but the mirage suggests that there is such a thing as water. In the material world, there is no water, there is no happiness. But the real water of actual happiness is there in the spiritual world. The Lord suggests that we attain the spiritual world in the following manner. Vimanamoha jitasanga dosha adhyat nitya vinivrakta kama dvandaviri vimukta sukadukka samtner gachanti amuda padam avyayam. That padam avyayam, our eternal kingdom, can be reached by one who is nirmana moha. What does this mean? We are after designations. Someone wants to become a son, someone wants to become a lord, someone wants to become the president or a rich man or a king or something else. As long as we are attached to these designations, we are attached to the body, because designations belongs to this body. But we are not these bodies. And realizing that this is the first stage in spiritual realization. We are associated with the three modes of material nature, but we must become detached through devotional service to the Lord. If we are not attached to the devotional service to the Lord, then we cannot become detached from the modes of material nature. Designations and attachments are due to our lust and desire, or wanting to lord it over the material nature. As long as we do not give up this propensity to lord it over the material nature, there is no possibility of returning to the kingdom of the Supreme, the Sanatana Dharma. The eternal kingdom, which is never destroyed, can be approached by one who is not bewildered by the attractions of the false material enjoyments, who is situated in the service of the Supreme Lord. One so situated can easily approach the Supreme. So this is very important. Here, the eternal kingdom, Samabhyayam, how can you reach that place? The reaching the spiritual world, abode of Krishna, is only possible when you start rendering service to Krishna. Without rendering service to Krishna or engaging in devotional service, one cannot go to the spiritual sky. One has to be nirmana moha. The word nirmana moha is used here. What does that mean? We need to give up our designations. Identifying ourselves with this body is a cause of all designations. As long as I'm identifying myself with this body, then I will say that I belongs to this particular family or particular religion, particular country, particular society. I'm a male, I'm a female, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm a brahmana, I'm a kshatriya, I'm a shudra, I'm a vaishya, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, I'm Indian, American, Russian, so on, so forth. All these designations belongs to this body. As long as you are associated with these designations, you cannot get out of the cycle of birth and death and this material existence. As long as we are associated with these material designations and to continue to exist in this material world, there is no possibility of happiness and there is no possibility of getting out of the clutches of the Maya. The material world controls us through its three modes of material nature. Material world means three modes of material nature: mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. As long as we are in this material world, we continue to suffer. The real happiness we only can obtain by giving up this material world and going back to home, back to Godhead, eternal sky, spiritual sky. The spiritual sky, the eternal kingdom is never destroyed. And who can approach the spiritual sky? Who is not bewildered by the attractions of false material enjoyments? And that is only possible when one starts to engage himself in the service of Krishna, which is a constitutional position of the living entity. If one is engaged in the devotional service, one can actually approach the Supreme. So now the question arises is, how do I engage myself in the devotional service? That is prescribed in BhagavadGita. And Srila Prabhupada, the prescription of BhagavadGita can be taken from Krishna himself and any of his authorized representative. And BhagavadGita is supposed to be, or for that matter, any authoritative knowledge has to be taken in disciplic succession from authority, right? So this knowledge is also has to be taken from Krishna and his representatives. And how to implement the instructions of Krishna in our day-to-day life is prescribed by a authoritative, authorized, disciplic, authorized devotee of Krishna, like Srila Prabhupada, who is coming in disciplic succession, and gives us the instructions in the form of simple rules. For following the four regulative principles, which is prescribed with the rules to be implemented in our day-to-day life, we can establish ourselves rendering service to Krishna or abiding by the principles given by the Krishna. What are those four regulative principles given by Srila Prabhupada? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting of this Mahamantra, we have chanted just once. If you chant 108 times, that becomes a one Japamala. And if you chant at least 16 Japamalas per day, this is prescribed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. This is the first principle. And there is no any restrictions on how do you chant. Only one suggestion is given. You can chant the holy name of Krishna by sitting or standing or walking while you're traveling or anything. But only suggestion is given is when you're chanting the holy name of Krishna, You have to hear it through your own ears. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare. That is all. And the second principle is whatever you are eating, you just eat whatever is offered to Krishna. Only take the Krishna prasadam. What can we offer to Krishna? Only vegetarian food cooked specifically for Krishna. And make sure that it doesn't contain onion, garlic, and mushroom. And that is the offering presented to Krishna, which is offered to Krishna. Take it as a prasadam. Remnants of the offerings as a prasadam. That's the only thing you're supposed to be eating. And be in the association of the devotees, because whomever we associate with, we tend to do the things under whom association we are in. And the association of devotees means the devotees always render service to Krishna. They talk about Krishna. They chant names of Krishna. They speak about Krishna, Krishna's pastimes. Render service in whichever way they are in, whichever state they are in. So it's always appropriate to be in the association of devotees. And to render the service to Krishna continuously without interruption, not to get influenced by the Maya, the modes of material nature, one need to hear Bhagavad-Gita and Bhagavatam regularly. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Hear about Krishna. As we're reading Bhagavad-Gita, introduction itself now, we get to know about in the position of Krishna and what is our position. What is our constitutional position? By continuously hearing about Krishna and his pastimes or situation, we tend not to get influenced by the material modes of nature. It's very essential that we continuously hear pastimes of Krishna. By following these 4 regulative principles prescribed by the Srila Prabhupada, we can engage ourselves in the devotional service, which is our constitutional position, Sanatana Dharma. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining. Even the reading of Bhagavad Gita requires some qualification. And what are those qualifications? Even if you're not qualified, how to adapt to those qualifications and acquire those qualifications in order to understand Bhagavad Gita is what the introduction explains to us. And it's very important. Whoever is a serious student of Bhagavad Gita has to take up these principles very seriously to understand Bhagavad Gita as it is, as prescribed by the Krishna himself. So let us stop it here. Prabhujis and Matajis, anybody has any comments, questions, or wanted to add anything? Prahlad Prabhu, do you have anything to say? All right. If nobody has any other questions or comments, then we close our session here. We'll continue again tomorrow. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Harinama Sankirtan ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki Jai.
Jai.
Samavaita Bhakta Vrind ki Jai.
Jai.
Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you very much, Matajis and Prabhujis. You are giving me opportunity to speak from Srila Prabhupada's books. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Matajis and Prabhujis. Hare Hare.